Hey YouTubers, good morning, Robb. Last week I did a video on Ernest Flagg's small houses, very inexpensive do-it-yourself houses. This is another book on build your own houses, and it's probably one of the more interesting books that I've ever read on alternative architecture, building really small, inexpensive houses, specifically underground houses. This is the $50 and up underground house book, 4th edition, How to Design and Build Underground by Mike Oehler. This is probably a classic in alternative housing. If you're interested in sustainable living, low-cost housing, or just looking for unique home design, this book is probably one of the best ones out there. Mike started this journey on building small underground houses back in 1981, and this has become a very important book in those people interested in building their own homes. What this book does that's different than others, it is the approach to building his underground houses. It's not just theoretical. Mike has been doing this for a long time. He lived in the houses that he built for a long time. He passed away, I think, a few years ago. He starts with a really simple process called SPS, which is post shoring and polyethylene. He uses a wooden post and polyethylene covering, shoring to protect the interior of the building from the earth. And he used a lot of timber that he found on his own property, and that way he was able to keep the cost down very low. The house is very small. This is his basic design he started with. And the interesting thing about it is there's two things to consider when you build an underground house. One is irrigation, because you're constantly having water enter the house. Second is the movement of the earth. So when he built his underground house, he dug the hole and then had it so where the water would drain down. Like a lot of houses underground, they build inside of the hill, and so the water's always, let me see if you can find another. So here, a lot of times people will build into the side of a hill or mountain, and then when the water comes down, it flows back to where it seeps down into the house. Where when you build in his method, you're building to where the water drains down and there's no place for it to collect. He also did different things to shore up the earth to keep it from moving. Although eventually his small building, he did have some trouble with the earth moving, so instead of redoing it, he actually enlarged it. He made it like a $500 house. This is his post shoring and polyethylene method. It's not up to code, but he would put in posts that were treated on the bottom to keep them from rotting, and then he would put shoring on the backside and then cover it with polyethylene. On the floor, he would just tamp down so it was level. He would put down polyethylene and put carpet over the top. He would build terraces, and his view would just be of the nature and things that were growing. He wouldn't have like a view like down the mountain or something. So a lot of people weren't too happy about that. So he came up with other designs that used like a cellar story. There was like openings up at the top so where you could see out and see other parts of the hills and so on. This is the $500 house he built. Now, he lived in these houses for a very long time, and he didn't have hardly any problems with them. The biggest drawback that I could see is that you have an almost impossible time of getting these approved to build with the building code in many areas. There's fewer and fewer places where you can just build whatever you want. He does go into detail on the back of the book on different ways to get zoning variances and so on, and or how to just build without them. I was thinking that in some places they have loopholes where if you have a building that's under a certain size, it doesn't have to conform to the code. And if you have like a composting toilet where you're not hooked up to the sewer system, you're not having to deal with that issue. So you might be able to get away with things. I know someone that built a outbuilding, and he told the zoning that it was just a playhouse. They had pool table and a little sink for washing their hands or whatever. But there was no, I don't think there was any toilet. But it was an outbuilding that didn't have to conform to the code. But they ended up using it for a living area, even though they told him it was just a playhouse. So there's sometimes, also because of the size. So here's where he's using the cellar story windows to have another view. Also, he managed to make a side entrance that he called the foyer. He had some different ways of doing things. Some of these things worked out and some of them didn't. Some of them seemed pretty cool, but then after they were put into use, they didn't work as well as you would imagine. You're still living in a in a house underground, and it takes a special person to live in a $50 underground house. But if you're starting out and you need something, and you have the muscles to take a shovel and start digging, I think he finished the digging like in 3 or 4 weeks. He goes into detail about the digging and so on. Here's one of his things. He built like a fire pit area outside. He can open the windows and cook outside. I cook on my balcony. It's a pleasure to cook outside the house. You get all the heat and the smoke and everything. It makes a lot of sense. But he found that before he built this one, the other one he was using, it was letting a lot of smoke into the house, and it didn't work out as well. But he has a lot of different information. Here is like a demolition agreement. I've never seen this before. Like if you wanted to tear down a house to get the raw material, the wood and stuff to use for free. He has pretty strong opinions about different building material. He says that this book has been updated by a later book where he says certain things he recommended earlier books not to use, like for the preservation of the wood. There's certain chemicals he was saying to use earlier that I found out that wasn't a good idea. There's been a lot of information lately on how to use different things that are more environmentally safe to preserve wood that's being put underground. But like I said, I think the most difficult part would be getting approval by the zoning and the building code. And you can forget about getting any bank loans. But if you're only using a small amount of money, you don't really need a lot. He goes into detail about the digging process. And overall, it looks like a fairly simple method that you end up with some fairly decent results. He also goes into detail about the pros and the cons of his method in the very beginning, all the advantages. So it's a fairly inexpensive book. You can get these used. I would try to get the later edition. This is 4th. I think there was another edition that might have a more updated information. But for a to just get, you wouldn't want to maybe use only this book, but it's a good starting point. And like I said, his method of building into the hill so where the water comes down and doesn't pool. This is kind of odd. His photo on the front is a design for a level ground underground construction. I'm not aware anybody ever did. This isn't the house he built. This is a recommendation for a design. If you didn't live in a hilly area, you could build into a flat ground area. And I'm not aware of anybody doing that. And he didn't build it in the book. His was this type of design. He built into the side of a hill. So it was like this. So I'm not sure why he has it on the front. So it's a very interesting book. I've not seen any other underground books like this, underground house books like this, and some interesting takes on building that are unique to his design. So Mike Oehler, $50 up underground house book. He's got a few videos on YouTube. You can check out YouTube and find some where people did some interviews of him and showed his house. So hope you like this video. I put on new stuff every week. Been doing it for 17 years. Variety channel. You never know what you're going to find, but I think you'll like just about anything you find on my channel. I don't make you dig with a shovel. I try to give you some really good stuff. You don't have to dig too much. All right, guys, take care. See you out there.